What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and today we're going to be taking a look at iRacing's newest release, and that would be the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup Car 2017 version. This car, actually, as far as I know, hasn't even raced in the real world yet with the new 4-liter engine rather than the 3.8-liter that was used previously. But minor little details. This is the same car that is also available in Assetto Corsa as part of one of the Porsche packs. I can't remember which one specifically. Assetto Corsa has the version of the car with ABS, whereas here in iRacing they've chosen to release the car with no ABS, which personally I prefer, and a lot of other people prefer as well, because it does make things a bit more demanding. We're going to be doing some just preliminary testing laps here around Oran Park today. Somebody had this track up and hosted, and I figured, hey, why not? Because it's actually a pretty demanding little track because it is a very bumpy surface, as well as you do hop the curbs a bit. And yeah, this is kind of the type of track I wanted to test this car out on, because the roof C-Spec, which is basically the 997 911 Cup car that iRacing had released previously, was notorious for pogoing over bumps and everything. So good little test circuit here. But first of all, let's go ahead and jump on into the garage, just to give you guys a look at what is going on here. I've done a couple of tweaks from the baseline setup, but there's nothing major going on here. This is a GT3 Cup car, not a GT3 race car. There's a difference. The GT3 in this case refers to the Porsche model name, not the series. It's a little bit slower than a full-blown GT3 car, but very few setup options in this car, which should make it very popular. First of all, you got your basic tire pressures, and then here's all you got. Really nothing more than what you have available for something like the Skip Barber car. You have your anti-roll bars, toe adjustments, brake pressure, and then you have spring perch offset, which is your ride height control, as well as your cambers front and rear, and then you have rear toe settings, fuel level, anti-roll bar at the back, and then your wing setting. By default, this comes at, I believe, 4 rear wing, which when you get into the higher speed corners, this car really has a tendency to plow like a dump truck with that extra rear wing. If you take the rear wing out, it will definitely help you in those scenarios, from what I've experienced so far. You know, generally I don't do these videos at this point, but it just kind of happened where I happened to be on vacation from work for the next week, and iRacing conveniently released it first day of vacation for me, which that's a great timing there, because I'm generally like the last guy to get these things, because generally I'm at work when other things get released. But let's go ahead and get driving here. Alrighty, and one last thing before we begin. The LED columns to the left and to the right of the main data display, those actually indicate wheel lockup. The top 2 LEDs on the left and right side, the vertical columns, indicate wheel lockup. Basically, it compares the wheel sensor speeds to the other wheel sensor speeds to indicate if you're getting close to wheel lockup. That doesn't mean the wheels are locked, but it means you are getting close. There is a bit of wiggle room there. And then the bottom LEDs indicate the same for the rear axle, which is a nice little assistance. Although this car does not have ABS, it does not have traction control. The only assist that you have is the semi-automatic paddle-shifted gearbox. Which, speaking of which, they added the little compressor sound. That's the compressor that makes the gearbox shift, which should actually be on a lot of the cars, but to the best of my knowledge, this is the only one that's had it applied. Be a nice little detail added to some of the other cars. It's not a major deal, just a cool little detail worth pointing out. But as for this car, this is essentially the replacement for the previously available roof C-Spec within iRacing, and it is a very different car in so many ways. And pretty much all of them is a category for the better. Let's be real here. For one, I can absolutely tell you that if I were to drive the roof C-Spec, like I am in this video, that car would absolutely throw a fit. It'd just be like, nope, not having it. As this car actually is like, sweet, let's do this. You know, it's not nearly as prone to pogoing over the bumps as that car was. It handles the curbing much, much better. Although at the same time, it is, in my opinion, a heck of a lot more challenging on the brakes. This car is actually really difficult to get slowed down, and it's definitely going to make for some highly skilled racing.
You got a slow car on the right. You got a slow car on the right.
So for those of you guys who don't know, the roof C-Spec in iRacing was basically, physically, supposed to be a 997 911 Cup car. So basically the predecessor to this car. This is a newer chassis 911. So obviously this car is a good bit faster, but it is still very much in the same mold of being about the driver and providing a challenge in very similar cars. And that is why the setup is so limited. And really you don't need it. I've driven this car at Spa, Sebring, and now here at Oran Park, which is kind of my usual testing rotation, although not so much Oran Park. But I always take the car to Spa and Sebring because there are two tracks that will really put a car through its paces here in iRacing. You know, obviously Spa being a pretty smooth, large Grand Prix circuit, Sebring being bumpy as can be. It will expose pretty much any pogoing, and really Oran Park doing much the same thing. You know, it still eats up the bumps. It still, you know, is reactive to the bumps. It's not a 1960s Cadillac by any means, but it doesn't have a tendency to go into that oscillation. I also have to say, iRacing has said that there's been some improvements to the tire model due to the development of dirt, and that this car is the first one to benefit from those advances, which, you know, I look at two different ways. You know, they haven't said this is new tire model version 8 or whatever the heck we're on now, so they could just be saying, yeah, yep, new updates, improvements. But it definitely feels different. You know, you can drive this car a lot more aggressively. You know, iRacing cars have a tendency to, once you get sideways, the tires go up in temperature really quickly, and then at that point you're dead. And that's why it's so difficult to catch a slide, whereas this is so much easier to correct. While they're talking in chat about it, the gearbox does have a pretty protective setting on it for the engine, so you can't just rifle through gears. But this car, because of the fact it doesn't have ABS, because it is really very tricky to get slowed down, it's not as annoying as, for example, the Formula Renault 2.0. Because this isn't really a car where you're going to be rifling through the gearbox. So do wait for the revs to drop down, but just wait for it and you'll get the gear. So I'm going to shut up here for a lap or two, let you guys listen to the sounds. No more elf with a hammer smacking the gearbox. Woo, yeah. This car, man, you can get up on that wheel, make your corrections, make them quick. It's definitely a lot more forgiving than most cars in iRacing. It's much better balance. You get on the power, it doesn't have that crazy understeer like the C-Spec did. Which, of course, this is a rear-engine car, with rear-engine weight distribution. I'm sure most people have probably heard about the mid-engine 911 that Porsche is going to be racing in GTE this coming season. This car still has the engine in the back, so you still have that issue. Going down the straightaway, you'll notice that there is a bit of play in the force feedback. For example, here, there's really not much resistance between here and here, but then once you start actually getting the turn, it builds up, which it's not too much of an issue. It's not something that I find myself having to consciously even think about, but there is kind of that on-center play because the front wheels just aren't loaded that much. And once you actually get to the corner, once you're on the brakes, feels normal. It's very nice and smooth. There's a cone in the middle of the track. I feel that the force feedback is something worth pointing out. But you can just visually see how many corrections I'm making. And if you're familiar with iRacing or the issues iRacing has had, you know that something's changed. There's a nice little 0x wall tap. But it is definitely a car to keep your eyes on, see what comes of it. If this is, actually indeed our first preview of the next update to the tire model, then I have to say a lot of the issues seem like they will be hammered down a bit. Now, obviously, this is still early days, so we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed. The car isn't pogoing. It's not just giving up in an understeer. You can work your corrections, drive the car on the throttle. You can do that, and It's easy, it's not snapping back on you, no death wiggles. Sweet! I have to say, this car is perfect for the iRacing ecosystem. You know, single make, spec series, and a car that is difficult to drive enough that, you know, it's going to keep you entertained. This is definitely not a GT3 car. It's significantly more difficult to drive than that. But it's also easy enough and appealing enough that I think the masses might actually stick with it. And because it is difficult, you should see some, hopefully, better quality racing, which is something that the C-Spec really did deliver on for the most part. So have high hopes for what this car is going to do in iRacing, and can't wait to actually get into the proper racing with it. So I'm going to do another lap or two here on board, and we'll throw it to external replay camera. I'm going to cut the audio there. So hope you guys enjoyed. All right, bye.